So I I was initially a hater, you know. I
Okay.
didn't watch the movie yet. Because I was super excited for the movie, right? When they first announced it. And then they announced that it would be a musical. So I was way super excited about it. Like I was stoked. And then they announced that it would be a musical composed of pop songs, like popular music. And
Yeah, jukebox.
I was angry and I refused to watch it, and I was convinced it would be bad. Since they announced that, I was convinced it would be bad. And so after it was released and everybody was saying it was bad, I was like, "Ha, I fucking knew it. I'm not watching that shit movie. I knew it was bad." And then I saw your video, and I didn't even watch the whole thing. I just like I watched you say it's good actually, and I was just like, "Huh, maybe I should rewatch this. Maybe I should watch this and actually form an opinion, and not just assume it's going to be a bad movie." And um, I did watch it. I wasn't exactly able to get to a movie theater to watch it, and some of the edges of the video were like cut out, and every time someone was smoking, it had an icon saying smoking something, but I couldn't see what the rest said. So I don't know if this was in a foreign theater, but I didn't exactly watch this in our movie theater, if you catch my drift.
I understand. Yes.
And um but I did see it, and I liked it. And I have some notes I wanted to run through with you. Now, this is the
Sure.
spoiler full
Yeah. Okay.
discussion of the Joker. We could talk about anything we want. Uh,
Okay.
this is for the 3 people that watch this episode, and the 40 people that watch 3 seconds of it accidentally. So it's just for us, really. Um, so the first thing I wrote is I like the cartoon at the beginning. I
Yeah, I
forgot
was
WB
surprised by
made
that.
it. Yeah, and I saw that and I was just like, this is fucking awesome. This is like a cool little this is a cool little cartoon. And I like to see the actual like studio that does WB animation do like something a little bit more mature. Um well how did you feel about that?
I thought the cartoon was interesting. Because it was interesting because it was simultaneously doing like a recap of like some of the events of the previous movie.
Right.
While at the same time also like setting up what is essentially like the core premise of what would be this movie, which is the idea that Arthur Fleck and the Joker aren't really the same person. The Joker is more like an idea.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I liked that it was like I
At a
liked
very
that it sort of summarized things, but I liked that it also like set a very like silly vibe right away. Like very it's very much like manic manic setting, and then it opens and it's not manic at all. It is Arthur, and he is not the Joker. He is not manic. He is depressed. He is taking his medication, and um I really like the idea of regression, as
Mhm.
someone who's like, dealt with autism, and like has an autistic daughter who's like I've seen her regress, and like dealing with like poor mental health is dealing with like regression, and dealing with like neurodiversity is dealing with a lot of progress, and uh, regression. And like I saw comments in your video saying that like that was like their critique, is that it didn't start with him full Joker mode, jokered
Mhm.
out laughing and killing people. It starts and he's not the Joker, and they said it was like a like uh like going back to the beginning, but I don't think it was, because
Yeah,
obvious
no.
he was like a he was he was not the same guy in the beginning of Joker 1 as he is in Joker 2. Like he is like very um
Hmm.
like battered um
Yeah.
and remorseful
He's
for the things he
technically,
did.
because when we meet him in Joker 2, he's been incarcerated. He's had his power he's had most of his power taken back away from him, because Joker 1 is all about how he, as this like this disabled guy, discovers power through violence. And so when we meet him in Joker 2, though, he's been incarcerated, so he's had a lot of his power taken away from him in his incarceration. So yeah, of course he's had some kind of regression. He's not free anymore. He hasn't. He's back in a certain ways. He's back to where he was before. Um, in the fact, because he doesn't really have any real power anymore. So yeah, I know exactly which comment you're talking about. The comments on my reviews. Yeah, I remember. I remember reading that, guys.
Yeah, and I tried to read those because I was trying to get the other perspective because my only feeling at first, the only thing I was going to be critical of the movie about is having modern music. And they didn't do
Mhm.
that. Like they didn't have anything past like the 90s. Like it was all like what I would consider pre-modern music because we're in the 2020s and that's everything in that thing was over fucking my lifetime ago. Like none of it's new music. So honestly, I
Yeah,
wasn't familiar with most of the songs in the movie and it felt a
yeah,
lot
like
more like a
Sinatra and
musical.
stuff.
Yeah. Like I don't know any of that shit. And I felt like it really passed itself off as a musical well. Um
Yeah.
how did you feel about that?
Um, I was cool with what they did with the music. Like, I thought it kind of played out how I expected it to. Like, for some reason, like from the beginning, there was a part of me that was like, it's probably gonna be. I'm betting the musical numbers will all be in his head. I'm betting those will be the clear sections that are part of his like his delusional states. And it was. Those were the moments where it was most like that. Um, in fact, I think technically speaking, he only actually sings one time in reality, and I think it's in his weird interview with Steve Coogan's character. Um, and even then, it probably doesn't sound like the how he's imagining it sounding.
Yeah. Well, then there were parts where I was having problems like figuring out that because like what was real and what wasn't because I thought I had a grasp on it, but I feel like and you make a point of this too. The movie takes like that gratification away from you. Like it wants you to it wants you to want something to happen and it takes that away from you every single time. And like so I kept waiting for a clear break from what was happening the second he was confessing in the like courtroom to not being like having multiple personalities. uh I was like, oh, this is another hallucination. Like he's obviously like this is when he breaks with reality and he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he isn't, and he's imagining doing this. But no, it just goes and it's like everything he does is like the wrong choice from that point, like for the Joker, and it puts him in a worse and worse position when you want him to do the other thing, and he has every opportunity to do the other thing, and
Hmm.
um and I really feel like even people who were praising the movie in your comments, there were a couple people who were saying it wasn't, or there was one person at least who was saying it wasn't matching the audience, and I feel like that's kind of true, because I feel like it was almost like a having Harley Quinn and the Joker do this like whole romance thing is like antithetical to like what incels are about, and like incel culture being so close to the Joker, it's like they were playing off that and being like, the Joker isn't like you. No, this man is more complicated. You know, he has like a love interest who betrays him, who does wrong to him, but he still simps for her. You know, he still chases her after, like she admits to
Yeah.
lying and everything. Like it's ick to them. You know, they're watching this. The same people who loved the first Joker, the guy lashing
I
out with raw energy, having to deal with like this new Arthur who's just like ick to them.
I saw a Facebook post of some guy who didn't like the movie, where he had like just the most unhinged analysis of the film. He described it as being like woke, as like a woke feminist film, and like about how it's all about taking away a man's power and whatnot. And like I'm reading it and I'm like, oh my god, this guy, like, it was
Yeah,
unhinged. And
yeah,
like, because like the truth is like he thought Harley Quinn was like meant to be like all this like super powerful feminist thing. It's like, no, that is not what's happening in this film. I assure you, sir, that is not what's happening. Like, the truth is that Harley Quinn actually represents like toxicity. She represents like people who worship the Joker, like the edgy fans who are like, yeah,
yeah. And I
When
mean,
Joker shoots a guy in the face.
and she's the bad influence on him when she's in
Mhm.
the hospital and all of that, like, and as she's telling him that he is the bad influence and molding him to be like cruel. And another interesting part is that they sort of make their relationship like a microcosm of like the whole arc of a relationship, coming
Mhm.
down to where he finally like reveals his vulnerable self, and she is displeased with that, you know, and it's
Mhm.
just the end of a relationship because Arthur Frayne isn't for Harley Quinn, you know, like, and that's like everybody has to deal with that, and then he has to like he has to pay for his crimes, and then
Mhm.
um the stabbing was completely unsettling for me because I was like really wondering who was there to see him, and you just never find that out. He just gets
Yeah.
stabbed and he lays on the floor, and I was like watching it. I was waiting for like a cut, like a quick cut. You know,
Mhm.
do
No,
you think
because
there's
he
gonna be a
doesn't
third
know
one?
that. I feel like there won't be, but maybe. So I the ending was the thing I had to process the longest. Like, so like I noticed that character like early on in the film. Like, because like when we were in the asylum, every once in a while the camera would just linger on him. Just this one character who wasn't really talking to anybody or really doing anything. The camera would just linger on him every once in a while in the background. And like the two things I thought about the guy was that he literally looks like is that he looked like he had like a face like the guy who played the Joker on that TV show Gotham. And he had like kind of a haircut and tattoo thing going on, like Jared Leto. And then at the end of the film, like he's cutting up his face like a Glasgow smile, like Heath Ledger. So like they kind of like just started amalgamating different versions of the Joker into him, I think.
Right. Yeah, and I mean,
And actually, apparently, in the credits, and to be fair, I got this off the internet, so I should watch the movie again before I say this for sure. But apparently, in the credits, the guy who stabs him is the one who is credited as Joker in the film.
okay, really?
Apparently, I don't remember actually seeing it in the credits, but that's what IMDb has him as.
Yeah, the I yeah, I don't think the uh way I watched it included the credits, so I can't verify that either.
Oh,
Um,
okay, I wasn't looking for it,
yeah.
but
Um,
yeah.
uh, so there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, which is Puddles, which is Gary.
Oh yeah.
I have a poor memory, so I'm gonna have to like rewatch the first movie and then like rent the movie when it's out and streaming in like a week or two. You know, when because there's such a fast cycle. Uh, uh, but I didn't remember Puddles, and I kind of remembered him, and then that whole part was like I almost felt like I was Arthur, and I didn't quite like remember what happened, or like wasn't really
So,
paying to the
so
attention to
Puddles.
like everything.
So Puddles is a gentleman with dwarfism who works for the same clown agency as Arthur, and he ends up. The thing that's established in the first movie is that Puddles is like the only guy who doesn't make fun of Arthur, and apparently Arthur, and it's revealed in Joker 2 that Arthur was also the only guy who didn't make fun of Puddles. And Puddles was with the because the one guy who gave Joker the gun, he came to Joker's apartment to talk to him to make sure he didn't tell the cops that he gave him the gun. And Puddles came with him, and that's when he was sort of like transforming into the Joker with the makeup and the hair. And so he stabbed the guy who gave him the gun earlier in the film, and he kills him in front of Puddles. And then Puddles needs to get out of the apartment, but Puddles is too short to reach the lock. So Puddles is just freaking out and like very scared. And then Joker comes over and just like unlocks the door and lets him out.
Okay, yeah,
Because
and I think that's so cool to have like to cut a movie into itself. You know, I think the best sequel, and I got this from other people. I don't recall who though, but like the best sequel is like um a a movie that is all of the essence of the first movie like multiplied. And I feel like I don't recall the entire first movie, but it felt like it was the case. Like the music didn't kill any of that. It definitely like it made it like it I think it made it better. I'm gonna have to watch the first one again, but I think I like the second one more after everything's over at the end of the day, because it's like a
I,
more eccentric art piece.
it is a more eccentric art piece, and the thing I like about it is because it makes so like the first film is in many ways a movie about disability, but it's like a weird kind of movie about disability, and it's also a very much like kind of a problematic image of disability. But like Joker 2 like kind of makes it better. Like it gives us it is actually a better representation of like disability, and like it gives his story, it makes his story arc a lot sadder, but it also rehumanizes him. Which I think is which I am all for. I'm all for them rehumanizing him. It turns it in, it makes it so the story is so that Arthur Fleck isn't really the Joker. He's just this guy who couldn't catch a break, who couldn't get the world to see him.
Yeah,
And
and
so
couldn't get the help he needed when he needed it. You know.
yeah, exactly. And so he put on a show and he killed a guy and he goes to jail and he gets famous, but he accidentally creates the Joker. He creates this idea of this sort of anarchistic rage at society. And the people of Gotham, they they begin to idolize him, and so then he goes to, of course he goes to the asylum, where one of these rabid fans manages to get into him. And also I thought it was interesting because like in the promotionals they kept saying, oh, Harley Quinn's not a psychologist in this movie, and then it's like, oh, it's because she only has her bachelor's so far in the movie. um because which actually makes sense because it means she hasn't actually gone back to finish her degree. But basically, she becomes this toxic person who manipulates the Joker, sort of, sort of just wants him to be. She wants that. She wants that Joker to be real, and so she tries to help make sure Arthur Fleck is that Joker,
Yeah.
which ends up probably destroying Arthur's chances of getting out of prison.
Yeah.
And and basically, he confesses only to be murdered by essentially the person who would become the new Joker. It's wild and sad and kind of beautiful in a weird way.
Yeah. My favorite part of the movie was like the scenes where they would cut to them doing like little pieces under the light with Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga, and I like how like it plays out the plot with the little thing, the dance, and I like the specific scene when he's like marrying her and she's in the dress, and it
Mm-hmm.
shows Puddles in the background and he's dancing. Like he's like dancing and into it, smiling, and it's only for like a split second. Do you see that? And
Mm-hmm.
like you have to be watching for it. And it's right after the scene where Puddles was like all upset, so like I was like sad, and then that scene brought me right back up.
Mm-hmm.
But
And like the Puddles thing is important because Puddles is someone who actually liked Arthur for Arthur, and
yeah,
he's like the only person.
yeah, the
So like
testimony
that,
did break him a little, you know.
yeah, that was the thing that started to break the Joker down to break him back to reality to in a certain way.
Right.